When was the last time you saw animation that looked this good? Or even better, a real villain? This is the first time in a long time that fans really took a liking to Disney animation. Of course, Disney animation is the staple of the entire company, and what Disney as a whole is more so known for, their animation. But it almost seems like since Pinocchio that fans really saw the animation style and paid attention to it rather than the story. At a first glance from the trailer, the animation is the first thing we notice, and even though it seems familiar, this is actually one of the times watercolor animation was used. The last we saw of this was in Lilo and Stitch, more so used for the background and characters were computer animated. Animators on Lilo and Stitch preferred that watercolors be used for Lilo and Stitch to evoke both the bright look of a storybook and the art direction of Dumbo, requiring the background artist to be trained in working with the medium. Wish is set to release on November 22nd of this year in the US. Aside from an apparent musical, and the animation being something that we haven't seen in a long time, the premise resides on the fact that a star falls from the sky and grants Asha a wish. The villain in this case is King Magnifico, the ruler of the Kingdom of Roses, who is the sole keeper of hundreds of wishes entrusted to people by him from all over the world. Production on this film started in January of last year with the writer responsible for the story of Frozen, having written for this story. As of March 26th, the film is in its stage of post-production, which means the final stages of editing and putting scenes together. On February 16th of this year, following the commercial failures of the company's Strange World and Pixar Animation Studios' Lightyear, both in 2022, Disney reportedly considered extending the theatrical windows for both Wish and Pixar's Elemental in hopes of bringing families back to theaters. So what does a real villain, according to those reviews, or just the audience, mean? Well, obviously a villain is a character whose evil actions or motives are important to the plot, which means someone who is determined to get in the way of the protagonist and their goals. So when the audience references that there is finally a real villain, they are referring to the previous films that didn't have a whole lot of obstacles to go through in order for the mission to be achieved by the protagonist. So we didn't really have a whole lot of reason to root for them as we did with, say, Mother Gothel in Tangled. Now, what do we know about the villain? Well, Chris Pine plays the voice of said character, and of course we know what he looks like and his motive, plainly just wanting power. And he is the ruler of Roses, a kingdom that is known for wishes. Since the film is still far out, there is still so much more to learn about this film. And this actually reminds me a lot of Pinocchio and Fantasia, where Fantasia was in the category of anthology/musical films, and hand-drawn animation was added in later. Nonetheless, people are really excited for this film as Disney seems like they're going back to the real magic of Disney, with the talking animal sidekick, beautiful vocals and music, creative world, and a physical villain to dodge along the way. And if we step back and go over what fans have said about a real villain, Disney's previous films like Strange World, Encanto, and Raya and the Last Dragon, where there wasn't a physical villain, the movies were good, yes, with the exception of Strange World that struggled a little bit in the box office, making under $100 million, which is very rare for a Disney film, but there was no real motive for anything. The story sounds like something coming from the Croods, but Dreamworks did it better. Some can even compare this to Cruella de Vil, or even as recent as Tangled, where there was a clear villain and audiences had something to be of concern throughout the film. But I did want to turn this around to you guys and ask what did you think and why this film attracted you, if you agree with my stance on this being something that a lot of Disney fans have been missing.